This is right, Arab.
Hello and welcome to WION Live Broadcast from Washington, D.C. I'm Simon Marks. Our top focus on today's bulletin, the worrying coronavirus surge here in the United States. Health officials are again urging people to get vaccinated to stem a surging spread of the highly contagious Delta variant. But will America's vaccine refuseniks agree? We'll get you the details. First, all the day's top headlines. The Taliban captured the strategic Afghan city of Ghazni, just 150 kilometers from Kabul. It's one of their most important gains in a lightning offensive that has seen them seize 10 provincial capitals in a week. France joins Germany and the Netherlands in suspending the deportation of Afghan migrants due to the worsening security situation in Afghanistan. Last year, Afghans accounted for the majority of asylum seekers in France, with over 8,000 applications there alone. The US federal government is rushing hundreds of ventilators to Florida. The Sunshine State is battling a fresh surge in COVID cases, and hospitals in Austin, Texas have run out of intensive care unit beds. Australia's capital, Canberra, goes into a 7-day lockdown after a single COVID-19 case was detected. About 400,000 people in the nation's political hub will be under stay-at-home orders. After devastating wildfires, Turkey is now battling severe flooding. As rescuers relocate thousands of people, the death toll from flash floods that swept across the Black Sea region rises to 5. And a Panamanian ship broke into two in Aomori Prefecture in northern Japan, spilling oil into the ocean. The ship carrying wood chips was heading towards Thailand. So we begin with the latest COVID-19 numbers here in the United States. They continue to ring alarm bells. The recent surge is being fueled by the highly contagious Delta variant. The average number of new daily cases over the past week is up 86% from 2 weeks ago. And the 7-day average of new cases is the highest it's been since February and has risen above 100,000 for the last 7 days consecutively. Louisiana and Florida have the highest concentration of daily new cases and the country's highest rates of hospitalization. A surge in COVID-19 cases has led to an overflow of patients in hospitals in Florida and inundated healthcare services. Florida alone makes up more than 20% of the country's new cases and hospitalizations.
Hospital, and that the numbers of patients are unprecedented. And that's in black and white. We have more patients in our hospital now than ever before. And if you look at the slope of the curve, and we're happy to provide you with our census curves, you can see that the line is going straight upward.
In the first week of August, over 44,000 Americans were hospitalized with COVID-19. That's nearly 4 times the number of COVID patients hospitalized in the month of June. In Texas, too, hospitals are being pushed to the limit, with ICU beds filling up. In Austin, hospitals rapidly ran out of intensive care unit beds. And in San Antonio, the Alamo City, a spike in virus cases reached alarming levels not seen in months, with children as young as 2 months old tethered to oxygen support. Over 10,000 Texans have been hospitalized this week, and at least 53 hospitals are reporting they are at maximum capacity in their intensive care wards. The recent COVID-19 surge, driven by the Delta variant, is also reigniting a political controversy around the wearing of face masks. That is a never-ending debate here in the United States. Some Republican governors are opposing all measures to make masks mandatory, despite advice from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Officials in Fort Bend County in Texas went so far as to file a lawsuit seeking to override the state's ban on masks. A judge later granted Fort Bend a temporary restraining order against Governor Greg Abbott's ban on mask mandates.
It is heartbreaking for me today. Our children, more than 78,000 of our children in our community returned to school without the ability of their leaders to employ the necessary tools, including requiring a face covering to keep our children and our educators safe.
Last week, Dr. Anthony Fauci, the country's top infectious disease expert, said that more pain and suffering lies ahead for the United States. He called the rise in infections an outbreak of the unvaccinated. Dr. Fauci called on more Americans to get jabs. According to the Centers for Disease Control, around 70% of adult Americans have received one dose of COVID-19 vaccine, and around 60% of adults are fully inoculated. Florida's healthcare system is being crippled by the spike in COVID-19. In the Sunshine State, it has the greatest number of COVID-related hospitalizations in the whole country. WION correspondent Susan Tirani gets you this detailed report.
Florida is leading the country in hospitalized children with COVID-19. The CDC's latest COVID-19 review shows hospitalization rates for kids 4 years old and younger have tripled since the last week of June. The Joe DiMaggio Children's Hospital in Hollywood, Florida, witnessed a significant increase in admissions in July and August compared to June in its emergency department.
Over the last several weeks, we have seen an enormous increase in the number of positive patients for COVID-19. Most of these children are coming to the emergency department, and most of them are not sick enough to come into the hospital. However, those that are admitted are sicker than what we've seen before, and many of them are requiring care in our intensive care units.
New data analyzed by the American Academy of Pediatrics and the Children's Hospital Association shows that children accounted for roughly 15% of all newly reported COVID-19 cases across the United States. Nearly 94,000 child cases of COVID-19 were reported in the first week of August, a 31% increase compared to a week earlier. However, the CDC says the numbers appear to show that severe illness, hospitalization, and deaths are still rare in children. Less than 2% of all child COVID-19 cases required hospitalization, and 0.03% were fatal. Still, the growing number of children hospitalized with COVID-19 could further strain an already overburdened pediatric health system. The COVID surge is also stacking upon an unseasonable spike in respiratory illnesses among children typically seen only in winter, while at other times entire families end up at the hospital all at once.
We've been seeing about double our normal summer volume with overall patients, but I think for us the most striking thing is how the increase in the families that are coming in that are positive. Not just the one patient, but the parents are positive, all the siblings are positive.
With the start of the school year, states are still trying to figure out what precautionary measures to take as students get ready to return to the classroom. There is still no vaccine authorized for children under the age of 12 in the United States. There's one pressing question, however, on parents' minds, and that is whether or not the Delta variant is making their children sicker than other variants. There's still no clear answer to that question. Susan Tehrani from New York for WION World is One.
California has become the first state in the U.S. to require all public and private school teachers and staff to get vaccinated. If they're not vaccinated, the school staff must undergo weekly COVID-19 testing. The statewide vaccine mandate for school educators comes amid growing concerns about the highly contagious Delta variant as schools begin to return from their summer break. Governor Gavin Newsom announced the new policy at one school that has already reopened. Many California schools are back in session now, with others starting in the coming weeks.
We're now following up today to align our school strategy to the state strategy and become the first state in the country to require that all of our staff, not just teachers, credentialed staff, paraeducators, custodial staff, the bus drivers, folks that are critical to supporting the entire school ecosystem, also submit a verification of vaccination and or submit to weekly testing.
Several large school districts in the state have issued similar requirements in recent days, including San Francisco, San Jose and Long Beach. The COVID-19 surge is affecting children more than previous strains of the virus. According to the state's health department, around 2/3 of Californians over the age of 12 are now fully vaccinated. Children under that age, though, are not yet eligible to get vaccinated in the United States. Last week, the White House said that almost 90% of American educators and school staff have already been vaccinated. The vaccination requirement follows similar orders that apply to state employees and healthcare workers. Governor Newsom has mandated that all healthcare workers must be fully vaccinated as a condition of employment. They're not being given an option in California to get weekly testing, but all other state employees have to get vaccinated or choose weekly testing. Spurred by the Delta variant, the country's coronavirus cases have spiked to their highest levels in more than 6 months. YouTube has suspended U.S. Republican Senator from Kentucky, Rand Paul, for 7 days. In a video posted on the social media platform, Senator Paul claimed that cloth masks don't prevent COVID-19 infections. YouTube says that statement violated policies on COVID-19 misinformation. It's the second time in a month that one of Senator Paul's videos has been taken down by YouTube for breaking rules on misleading content. The social media platform said, "We removed content from Senator Paul's channel for including claims that masks are ineffective in preventing the contraction or transmission of COVID-19 in accordance with our COVID-19 medical misinformation policies. We apply our policies consistently across the platform, regardless of speaker or political views." In the 3-minute video, Senator Paul disputed the effectiveness of masks. The U.S. Centers for Disease Control and medical experts around the world insist that face masks do help prevent the spread of COVID-19 infections. Senator Paul, who is an eye surgeon, said in his video that most of the masks you buy over the counter don't work. During the 7-day suspension, he will not be able to post new videos on his YouTube account. The senator called the ban a badge of honor. A few days ago, Senator Paul posted a video of an interview which disputed whether masks prevent infections. Last week, YouTube removed that video. Twitter has taken similar actions against another Republican for falsely claiming that vaccines are failing and do not reduce the spread of the virus.
So small, government that largely leaves us alone.
Rapid advances by the Taliban continue in Afghanistan. The terror group is inching closer to the capital, Kabul, and now they've captured another provincial capital just 3 hours away from Kabul itself. It's reported the strategic city of Ghazni has fallen to the terror group. Ghazni is the 10th provincial capital to fall to the Taliban in the span of just 7 days. Heavy clashes are underway close to the provincial governor's house in Ghazni. According to reports, the Taliban has also captured the police headquarters in the city. In Kunduz, which is 300 kilometres north of Kabul, the terror group has captured the airport and military bases. The terrorists faced little resistance from Afghan troops who surrendered en masse. Just yesterday, the Taliban captured Faizabad. Prominent provincial capitals of Kunduz, Talakan and Zaranj are among the cities which are now being controlled by the Taliban. The terror group controls more than 2/3 of Afghanistan. The Afghan forces are struggling to push back against the Taliban, which has rapidly moved into urban centres from rural areas. And all may not be well within the political corridors of Kabul as well. Amid Taliban offensives, the Afghan army chief has been replaced, exposing the divide between the country's army and President Ashraf Ghani's government at a time of crisis. Habibatullah Alizai has replaced Wali Mohammed Ahmadzi as the new chief of army staff. Ahmadzi, who served as the army chief for only a few months, faced heavy criticism as Afghan forces struggled on the battlefield. Citing US intelligence, an American defense official told Reuters that Taliban fighters could possibly take over in Kabul in just 90 days. The Pentagon, however, has maintained that while the security situation in Afghanistan is deteriorating, the fall of Kabul is not inevitable.
No potential outcome has to be inevitable, including the fall of Kabul, which everybody seems to be reporting about. It doesn't have to be that way. And I think it's going to be, it really depends on the kind of political and military leadership that the Afghans can muster to turn this around. They have the capability, they have the capacity, and now it's really time to use those things.
WION correspondent Anas Malik sent us this report from Kabul on the latest developments.
Well, fighting seems to continue in Afghanistan and Taliban have overrun 9 provincial capitals in the past 6 days. Just a while back, the Taliban have claimed their 10th provincial capital, the province of Ghazni, and its capital, Ghazni city. But this is the claim for now. This has not been independently verified as yet. That would make the 10th, if only this is verified, that would make the 10th provincial capital to fall to the Taliban. Ghazni is in the eastern side of Afghanistan. That is about 150 kilometers from where I am in Kabul. It's about a 3-hour drive. In the past 24 hours, the Afghan government has claimed to have killed more than 400 plus Taliban men in its attacks. This is a claim that has been rebutted by the Afghan Taliban spokesperson. Additionally, if I talked to you yesterday, we saw that key meeting of President Ashraf Ghani with former warlords or uprising militia leaders, as they say it, in Mazar-e-Sharif, where they had vowed that they would do utmost to ensure that the country is protected. We saw a change of command yesterday as well in the Afghan army, where General Ahmadzai, the then army chief, had been sacked and has been replaced by General Alizai, who was leading the operations in Helmand and precisely in Lashkar Gah. If I talk to you about the situation in Lashkar Gah, the Taliban now seem to have control of 90% of the city, whereas only a handful of government forces remain in the city of Lashkar Gah, who are seeking refuge in police in the government house, and they are waiting for reinforcements to arrive. Anas Malik in Kabul, Afghanistan for WION World is One.
Turkey's wildfires have turned once lush forests into a field of ashes. And while people have lost homes and livelihoods, as you'll see in our next report, the destruction is being felt intensely by Turkey's beekeepers.
As Turkey continues to battle raging wildfires, the country's beekeepers are left to pick up the pieces. They have lost not only thousands of hives, but also the pine trees that the bees depend on. The wildfires have dealt a heavy blow to Turkey's honey industry.
I had 160 hives, beehives, 27 of them burned, the rest are incapacitated. Right now the number of bees is very low. This happened because of the wildfires. The honey producing areas of the Marmaris Peninsula are completely burned. We are suffering.
Nearly all the residents of Osmaniye are beekeepers. Their beehives, which once looked out to the green hills of the Mughla province, are now just a field of charred trees.
In Mughla province, we have 7,000 beehives. Of these beehives, 1,900 were damaged in Marmaris. 100 were damaged in Saida-Kemer. Since other fires have not been extinguished, we are waiting. Our estimate is that on average, 4,000 to 5,000 beehives have been damaged here.
Unlike most of the honey created in the rest of the world, which is created from the nectar of flowers, bees in the region make honey from an insect that lives on pine trees and feeds on their sap. What they leave behind, the bees use to make nutritious honey. Now their whole production cycle has been disrupted.
We are the world's main producer of pine honey, 92%. All the sales of honey to Europe are pine honey. Therefore, we must replace the areas that were destroyed in the same way, the same quantity.
Even before the wildfires, Turkey's beekeepers were suffering from the effects of climate change, with droughts and high temperatures reducing the pine tree's sap and killing the bugs. While the government has assured that the burnt forest would be reforested, it will take years for a forest to grow back, and even longer for Turkey's beekeepers to find their footing. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
Marine rescuers are attempting to free a humpback whale entangled in a shark net off the coast of Australia. Workers reached out with blades at the end of long poles to try and cut the netting off the whale's tail. Take a look. For many, music is the soul of life, and for someone who has collected musical instruments all his life, parting with them is no easy task. Our next story is about David Winston. He spent over 5 decades collecting rare pianos, and he's now put them up for auction.
They do that rather than...
David Winston is Britain's piano man. As someone who has dedicated his life to soulful music and musical instruments, his collection of pianos is almost as good as it gets. He has a treasure trove of more than 26 rare pianos, collected over a lifetime, including one that belonged to Queen Elizabeth II.
I'm nearly 71 years old, my feeling is that with beautiful objects, you're never anything other than the caretaker of these wonderful things, and you have to be generous spirited and realize when it's time to pass them on to other people, for other people to enjoy them and become a part of their history. And it's just the right moment in my life.
Winston's piano collection includes instruments right from the 18th century. As someone who has specialized in restoring musical instruments to their original condition, he has worked on the French Pleyel piano that belonged to his great hero, Frédéric Chopin, and also Beethoven's Broadwood piano, presently housed at the Hungarian National Museum. David Winston has now decided to auction off his prized possessions in the 8th decade of his life. He feels he simply hasn't the time to look after his rare pianos.
I've decided to sell 25 instruments altogether, which is, the culmination of a lifetime's collecting, learning about instruments, getting to know the instruments, understanding what they're all about, trying to find instruments that are representative of all different times, and cultures.
Some of Winston's instruments could fetch as much as $80,000. But the rare pianos aren't just wood and string that produce music. For Winston, they are a reflection of the life he has lived. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
A remarkable man. That's all we have on today's WION Live Broadcast from Washington, D.C. I'm Simon Marks. For more global news and updates, stay with WION. World is One.
Many other. This is right, Arab.